कंट्री डायरेक्टर हैं मिस्टर क्रिस के, उनको हम लेंगे ऑन एयर और उनके साथ फिर हम बात करेंगे इस हवाले से. लेट मी टेक मिस्टर क्रिस ऑन एयर, जो कि कंट्री डायरेक्टर हैं अगेन एज आई मेंशन WFP प्रोग्राम के पाकिस्तान में, वर्ल्ड फूड प्रोग्राम, और उनसे हम जानते हैं अपडेट. Hey, hi, is this Chris? Hello. Hello, Chris, can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear, thanks.
Chris, first of all, welcome to our show on FM100. We are live right now and live streaming too. And this is an initiative by FM100 since beginning of the flood, since it hit Pakistan. And this segment that we are doing since then is called Rehbar program from Islamabad, the FM100 platforms. So real quick, we'll let the listeners know that what WFP, or World Food Program in Pakistan, is currently doing. So if you can quickly give us a brief introduction of WFP in Pakistan.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've been in Pakistan for over 60 years, so we're pretty familiar with the country and have got a solid relationship with its people as well as with the government. Obviously, the focus of our work right now is responding to the floods. We were there for Pakistan in the floods response in 2010, and we're here in responding to the floods in 2022. The nature of our response is somewhat different to 2010, and largely because of the capacity of the government to lead the response. So we're very much in support mode. We're very much looking to fill gaps. But as of yesterday, we provided food assistance to over 700,000 people. We're gearing and scaling up, and we should reach over 1 million people by the end of the weekend. We're also providing nutrition support, which is vital at the moment, particularly for pregnant and lactating women and children under 2.
So Chris, I'd certainly like to, there's a following up question to this. I mean, how were you able to identify which group of people, matter of fact, are most affected? And is there any, I'd say, how would you bifurcate the gender based affected people? What were the criteria, as a matter of fact, which helped you to precisely identify which areas first need more assistance or more help or relief work? And then what was your execution plan?
Sure. Okay. Well, prioritization is critical. It's not as though we have a large amount of funding that can cover everywhere. So we have to be very focused in understanding where our support can be most impactful. The first thing to say is that we work very closely with BISP, and understanding that 25,000 rupees are being provided out to a large number of over 2.7 million households. Clearly, that's fantastic response by the government. The important thing is making sure that we can get food to those areas where there is none, so that money can be used to purchase food. That's one. And obviously, more importantly, perhaps finding those people who don't have access to that cash. So our focus is very much understanding that detail. We're very closely linked with BIS. We have a good relationship and understanding their database, where they're targeting, so we can more accurately identify where our assistance can be most useful. But absolutely, the whole process of assessment and targeting, it's something that we do as a matter of course. So it's not as though we weren't aware of where the most food insecure areas in the country were before until the floods came. We knew before the floods that over 5.7 million people in this country were food insecure, and we knew where those people were. So the critical thing was making sure that those people who were then subsequently affected by the floods were the first people that we're looking to reach. Clearly that number has grown, and that has been captured in the recently launched appeal that was presented by Minister Sherry Rehman on behalf of the government in Geneva on Tuesday. where the United Nations agencies and its partners appealed for $816 million.
Okay, so Chris, there's one more question. As you know, I do understand that you do also have the reach, or matter of fact, exposure of the other countries in the world. So my question from you would be, according to your observation, your meetings, your visits to different countries, how much is the understanding of this this disaster in the entire world regarding Pakistan? Are they like taking it? I mean, the information, matter of fact, is it as accurate as it happened, or is it being undermined, to the other countries in the world?
Well, I'm not too sure I understand what you mean by undermined. I think certainly the message is getting out there. I think the work that all the journalists and news and radio do to highlight the nature of the problem is really vital to getting our message out there. And of course there is a very short attention span, unfortunately, of the world on issues like this, and particularly because, of course, they're coming so regularly now.
Yes.
So being able to keep Pakistan and the needs in Pakistan in the spotlight, is difficult. It's a big challenge. Particularly when you've got issues like Ukraine going on, rumbling in the background all the time. So there's a variety of different challenges and competing crises around the world that we have to, as I say, we have to compete with. Launching the appeal on Tuesday was obviously a great opportunity, and we've taken that. I think we got good exposure. As I mentioned, I think that the messaging by the Minister for Climate Change was extraordinary. She did an outstanding job, I think, in articulating the needs and the challenges that Pakistan faces, not just from the immediate impact of the floods, but more personally from the point of view of the impact of climate change on a country that really suffers from consistently and regularly, and ever more regularly, from these types of climate-induced disasters.
Absolutely. So talking about the climate change, I mean, we personally, if you ask me, the FM100 has been one of the top houses where climate change is really an emphasis, and we have done, and matter of fact, we are doing multiple programs on awareness regarding climate change in Pakistan as well as in the world, and we do invite experts on that matter too, prior to the flood, as we talk about climate change, and that's really a matter of concern for the entire world. Now, coming back to the flood relief activities, I mean, according to the stats, according to the numbers, matter of fact, there are more than 33 million people who are being affected. So the responses that we see right now, which were inevitable, which is a quick response to stabilize a bit, or maybe assist, or get the families out from the flood affected areas, and this would be obviously followed by the rehabilitation process. So WFP as an organization, do you think WFP has a plan regarding rehabilitation program? And I'll also add the other organization or the people that you're working with. Do they have a very strong rehabilitation plan, or their focus right now is just to have some assistance right now, and they are thinking about the rehabilitation program? How sorted is the rehabilitation program?
So, I mean, the focus of our appeal and our activities really stretch for the next 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
So we're very much focused on the humanitarian need. As you've probably heard, it's been well reported and documented. We're in the second wave of sort of humanitarian emergency, and that second wave is associated with a health emergency. Standing water causes disease. We've got dengue, we've got malaria, we've got terrible skin diseases, and we've got malnutrition, which is exacerbated by people drinking polluted water, and so on. So the focus very much is to ensure that we can get the needed supplies that will mitigate against any kind of morbidity and mortality, because that is the current risk right now. Much of that, of course, is associated with those people who are living on the side of the road still. So the sooner that the waters recede and we can help people get back into their homes, the better chance they have, I think, of being protected from that type of problem. They can protect themselves. But people are incredibly vulnerable at the moment. Those people who are living in temporary shelters, literally, blankets with propped up with bamboo sticks, they have no protection from disease. So this is a major concern. We've got to fix that problem in the first instance. We've got to be able to provide food assistance and nutrition support, and improve the availability of clean water. When it comes to recovery rehabilitation, of course, that's factored into our plan. We have already begun, to some extent, some degree of recovery activities for the people in Balochistan, for example, where the floodwaters, there it was torrents, it was flash floods. The water receded, but the destruction, that was left in its wake was huge. And those people need recovery support, and we have begun to do that, and along with other partners. But that's obviously not possible in those areas that are much closer to the Indus and those immediate areas that still remain flooded. So it's not a complete sequential process of immediate humanitarian assistance and then followed by recovery. It's going to vary across the country. It's going to be dependent on how well areas recover from receding floodwaters. Looking further down the line, we do have an exercise which is currently underway of a post-disaster needs assessment, and that's being led by UNDP and the World Bank together with the government, and the results of that assessment are due in the middle of this month, and that will provide a much more grounded understanding and assessment of the recovery needs, what it's going to cost, and help us to start the process of prioritization. From the World Food Programme's perspective, our concern is, of course, about the recovery of the agricultural production and the availability of food. And because clearly the floodwaters, the amount of agricultural land that has been impacted, the crops that have been destroyed, the wheat that was harvested before the floods that have been washed away, has meant that an already stressed food security situation because of high food prices will become inevitably worse over the course of the next coming months. So we will certainly have our work cut out, I think, to help address those sorts of problems and get agricultural production back up and running.
Great. Chris, thank you very much for coming online on air with us on Rehbar initiative by FM100, and we really appreciate WFP's efforts in Pakistan regarding the flood relief. We certainly do appreciate you coming on air and sharing insight out with our listeners. Thank you very much.
No, well, not at all. Thanks very much for the support, because you definitely help us get the message out.
Great, much appreciated. Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Alright listeners, ये थे हमारे साथ मिस्टर क्रिस Kaye, जो WFP पाकिस्तान के डायरेक्टर हैं, कंट्री डायरेक्टर हैं, और ये काफ़ी ज़्यादा जो है वो फूड के हवाले से इनकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन काम कर रही है पाकिस्तान में. मैं कुछ अपडेट्स आपके साथ शेयर करता चलूँ कि जो सैलाब ज़दगान के हवाले से हमारे पास अभी रीसेंट अपडेट्स हैं. FM100 का जो इनिशिएटिव है रहबर प्रोग्राम, जो हम आपको डेली अपडेट्स जो हैं फ्लड या सैलाब ज़दगान के जो मुतासरीन हैं उनके हवाले से साथ साथ गहे बगहे अपडेट करते रहते हैं. सो स्टैट्स के हिसाब से तकरीबन 33 मिलियन लोग जो हैं वो सैलाब से इफ़ेक्ट हुए हैं, जिसमें 2 मिलियन घरों को नुकसान पहुंचा है और कम से कम 7.9 मिलियन लोग बेघर हो चुके हैं. और इसके साथ साथ ना सिर्फ ये कि इनके जो माल मवेशी थे, इनके जो ज़रा रोज़गार था, क्योंकि आपको पता है कि पाकिस्तान एग्रीकल्चरल बेस्ड इकॉनमी है, ज़रात पे हमारा ज़्यादा इन्हिसार होता है. ज़रात की एक्सपोर्ट में ज़रात हम खुद भी इस्तेमाल करते हैं. ज़रात की अगेन जो ज़री ज़मीन है, जो फसलें हैं, उनको बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान हुआ है, जो कि मेरी अगेन मिस्टर क्रिस जो कि हमारे साथ अभी ऑन एयर थे उनसे भी बात हो रही थी, तो उन्होंने भी ये मसला बड़ा हाईलाइट किया है कि जो फसलें थी वो तबाह हो चुकी हैं, सब कुछ खाने को नहीं है, जिसकी वजह से हमें काफ़ी खाने की भी शॉर्टेज या फसलों की भी शॉर्टेज, स्पेशली बेचारे वो किसान जिन्होंने इतनी मेहनत की और उन इलाकों में जो खाने की जो अशियाँ, खुर्दनोश की जो अशियाँ हैं, उनमें बहुत कमी है और उनकी बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत भी है। तो 1.1 मिलियन से ज़ायद मवेशी जो हैं वो हलाक हो चुके हैं, लोगों के पानी के साथ बह गए या इसकी जद में आ चुके हैं। कुछ स्टैट्स मेरे साथ हैं, मैं साथ साथ आपको पढ़ के जो अपडेटेड स्टैट्स हैं वो भी आपको बताता चलूँ। 9.4 मिलियन एकड़ जो फसल का रकबा है वो मुतासर हुआ है। 9.4 मिलियन एकड़, मतलब ये आप सोच लें कि कितना बड़ा रकबा है जिसमें सारी फसलें जो हैं वो तबाह हो चुकी हुई हैं। और अगेन ये एक दिन का, हफ्ते का, महीने का प्रोसेस नहीं है। इनको एक आफत से निकाल कर हमारे जो अगेन हमारे जो पाकिस्तानी भाई हैं, बहनें हैं, जो घर इससे अफेक्ट हुए हैं, उनकी रिहेबिलिटेशन का भी प्रोसेस इसके बाद फॉलोड रहेगा। और पैगाम अगेन मेरा यही है कि हमें सोचना ज़रूर चाहिए, हमें बढ़ चढ़ कर हिस्सा ज़रूर लेना चाहिए इन एक्टिविटीज़ में। हमारे भाई हैं, हमारे पाकिस्तानी बहन भाई हैं जिनके साथ ये हुआ है। और ना सिर्फ ये कि दुनिया में कहीं भी ऐसी आफत आए तो इंसानियत के नाते हमें एक दूसरे का साथ ज़रूर देना चाहिए। आइए हमें अगेन अपने साथ एक अहद ज़रूर करना है। हम ये अहद करते हैं कि हम सैलाब ज़दगान के लिए आसानियाँ पैदा करें, उनकी मदद करें, उनकी अगेन रिहेबिलिटेशन का जो प्रोसेस है उसमें बढ़ चढ़ कर जितना भी आपसे हो सकता है, जितना भी हमसे हो सकता है हम करें। हमारी भी कोशिश जारी है, आपकी भी कोशिश जारी रहनी चाहिए, FM100 की भी कोशिश जारी है और ये जारी रहेगी। और साथ साथ दुआ ये भी करें और अगेन कोशिश ये भी हमारी होनी चाहिए कि जो मुस्तकबिल में आने वाली आफात हैं, अल्लाह हमें उन सब से बचाए। और अगर ऐसी आफत कोई आ जाती है तो उसके लिए भी हम तैयारी, और हमारे साथ एक प्लान हो, हमारे पास एक प्लान हो, और अगेन हम तैयार हों इस चीज़ के लिए। जाते जाते आपसे यही कहूँगा कि ये हमें एक दूसरे का बहुत ख्याल रखना चाहिए। पाकिस्तानियत अगेन अपने अंदर हमें उजागर रखनी चाहिए। और FM100 का भी बहुत शुक्रिया जो ये अपडेट्स आपके लिए रोज़ाना लाता है। ये पब्लिक सर्विस मैसेज है और अगेन ये FM100 की तरफ से पेश किया गया है आपको। इसी पैगाम के साथ, इसी अपडेट के साथ मज़ीद अपडेट्स आपके साथ हम लाते रहेंगे। आपसे इजाज़त चाहूँगा। मुझे कहते हैं आरजे आदिल। आप अपना बहुत सारा ख्याल रखिए। अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।